Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Too Many Men podcast. My name is Allison Lucan. I am joined by two tremendous individuals, and I'm going to get right to them because we have exciting content to distract you from the trade deadline chaos of will they, won't they, did they, will they, haven't they, shouldn't they. It is the incredible Sarah Sivian. Sarah, how are you?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I am also fantastic because we are not just our two, we are our three
Mm.
with the brilliant Shayna Goldman. Shayna, say hi.
Hi, just doing my job.
Good job. Excellent. Crushed it. Well, you might notice that we're rushing through this because, as I mentioned, we know this is a hectic time for many teams and we know that things are fluid. So, with the trade deadline coming this Friday, we thought we'd give you something really fun and exciting and joyful to have in your earbuds and on your eyes if you're a YouTube subscriber. We could not be more thrilled to have talked with author Lexi LaFleur Brown about her first novel, Shoot Your Shot. She joined us. We talked to her about this. I've just been enamored with her and for who she is and what she does for years. I was so thrilled she joined us. Sarah, what stood out to you about our talk with Lexi?
Just how authentic she always is, how much she cares about the book, and how she seamlessly weaves in all, like in the book, it's just kind of parts of her real life, parts of like romance novel tropes. It's kind of a play on them too, which I love that it's so tongue in cheek. And I love that she's just everything she touches, she's just turns to gold.
Shayna, what stood out for you?
I love how she goes about it too, because like I've never read a hockey romance. I've never read a romance novel in my life. Like that is not my thing. But you can read it with these, and it covers so many important topics while keeping others light. And I feel like just listening to her interview, like I think you'll get that too, right? She has the real world experience, she has the hockey knowledge, and just blends it together in such an easygoing way that it just makes it understandable and welcoming for everyone, which is everything that the sport is not.
That is so true. Well, my friends, we will be back with you on Saturday with an emergency episode breaking down the results of the trade deadline. But until then, please, in addition to doing something no matter how big or small to make sure hockey is truly for everyone, sit down, relax, and before you get ready to buy your copy of Shoot Your Shot, enjoy this interview with its author, Lexi LaFleur Brown. Well, y'all, we could not be more excited. I don't think there's ever been a bigger moment for the Too Many Men podcast than this moment right here. This individual who is joining us today is an icon, a genius, a gorgeous
Oh my
human
God.
inside and out, and y'all, a published author. Her first, I'm sure, first of many novel, Shoot the Shot, comes out March 11th. We are over the moon to welcome the incredible Lexi LaFleur Brown. Lexi, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Too Many Men.
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I love you guys all so much. So I'm fangirling too.
Well, the person who I know has been so excited to have you, we're going to let Sarah kick off our discussion with you today.
All right. So I have seen you on TikTok since before the book, and I see you started posting tons of fun stuff, serious stuff, like a blend of who you actually are before the public knew a book was coming. Can you take us through that initial TikTok journey?
Yeah, I was kind of just posting on there for fun for a while. And then when I started to think about writing this book, I maybe started to take it a little bit more seriously and maybe focus in my content a little bit more, which was really fun for me to make a lot of this kind of hockey type content. And I was really able to grow like that kind of specific audience, which has been wonderful.
Yeah, and some of that content like was in the beginning too, just clearing up these common mistakes and tropes in hockey romance novels. Is that what sparked the inspiration for writing the book in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I was reading so much hockey romance one summer. I was reading as much as I could get my hands on. And I just felt like, I know this space so well. I have such great insider knowledge, not only because I love hockey, but also because, I was married to an NHL player. And so I just felt like, oh, I could really have a book here that's unique, that offers a unique perspective.
Lexi, in this space, we like to say an NHL player is married to you.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
thank you. I like that.
but talk us through that, right? So and I think all of us who were kind of watching the book talk phenomenon come into hockey, we were like, cool, but like that's not how the game works and it's
Mhm.
different. Talk us through the actual process of coming up with saying, I want to write a story, and then actually getting down to the nuts and bolts of putting together a novel.
Yeah, I mean, writing a book, I've always been a writer. Writing a book has always been a dream of mine. And I kind of just was writing every day, oh, I want to finally do this thing I've always said I wanted to do. And at the same time, I was really getting into the hockey book talk and even just on Twitter, all of these hockey Twitter. And I was like, oh gosh, something is here. And so I started to read all these books and there were definitely inaccuracies. And they're still fun to read, even when even when they're getting it wrong. But I just like I really immersed myself in that culture. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna write something here because I want to write the book that I'm wanting to read. And it's gonna be fun and silly, but it's gonna have some of these real things that, hockey players are dealing with. It's gonna have some of these real things that their significant others are dealing with. And I know that there were so many people becoming hockey fans because of these books. And I was like, okay, well, I want them to leave here having read this with like a little bit of real knowledge too of the sport if they're going to go on to be, big hockey fans. And so I definitely had to balance like wanting to write something that was fun and engaging and had some conflict and drama, but also wanting to write something that was really honest and true to the experience and something that like fans can read and be like, well, I know that this is accurate.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did you write this before you had a deal? So you did this all on your own without much guidance at all? Because that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And that's usually what happens with this type of thing. Like you kind of have to just invest a ton of time into it, not knowing what's going to happen with it. And I was having fun writing it, obviously, and didn't really even know if it was going to shape out to be something in the end. And by the end of it, I had some of my followers who were saying really encouraging things to me. And I was like, okay, I think I have something here. And then you pitch it to an agent and I was able to get a great agent. And then we went on to to sell it, and we were able to sell it, which was wonderful.
Iconic, iconic.
I love how you mentioned the book too, and you can like literally pick up the physical copy. Like that must feel so surreal. So, how did the story of Lucy and Jalen like come to you? What was the inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a goalie. I grew up as a goalie, and with goaltending, it's like superstition and hockey. Like you cannot separate the two. And so this idea of like a player having this really crazy superstition and which was like kind of fun and silly, but there's like a little bit of crazy honesty there too. And then when it came to Lucy, it was like, okay, how can I create a character where she can fit into his world, but also still have her own thing. And that's like a big struggle that a lot of hockey wives have is, how can I still be my own person and have my own things when I have to follow his career so that's kind of how the two of them first started to shape out.
Obviously, your lived experience is one of diversity in a space that is not incredibly diverse. Obviously, you
Mhm.
bring that to the book too. How much of that, obviously, it's intentional and it's also what you know, but how important was it for you to have a book that has these fun hockey tropes, but also has this element to it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like for me, that's my life. That's my lived experience is the queer friend group and then, a very diverse cast of characters in this book. And for me, when I was reading all these books, I was like, okay, this is great, but there's not a lot of BIPOC representation. There's a lot of queer hockey romances, I will say that. But I was like, how can I, tell my own story and my own world in this. And so for me, yeah, it was important to have the diversity in the book, and because that's what I want to read and that's what makes my life so wonderful and so interesting. And so that's what came out on the page.
And Lexi, I think that, first of all, this was just such a great read. I loved it. It was like
Thank
I
you.
said, it was my little gift to myself. But to that point, what really struck me was how you normalized so much that isn't normalized in hockey through this
Mhm.
story, right? And part of that was diversity and the mental health storyline here too. I just was like, it's powerful without like hitting you over the head with it, right? And how intentional was that in your storytelling? And again, the bigger picture of trying to bring narratives into hockey that maybe aren't as welcome right now.
Yeah, and I had to kind of balance that out of being like, I don't want it to be like a fantasy where these characters don't experience any sort of racism or negativity, like, because that's not really realistic. But at the same time, like, this is a rom-com. This isn't what their story is going to be about, but it's still going to exist. And so it definitely needed to be a balance. And then I think just with, my main character is bisexual, and like, the way she comes out to Jalen, to the main male character in this, it's just very matter of fact, and it is what it is, and that's how he takes it. It is what it is, and everybody moves on. It's not a big deal. And so like doing something like that was important for me because, can we get to this place where it just is what it is? And I think like for their age demographic, they're in their early 20s, and I think that that's pretty realistic, especially, in Seattle. So stuff like that was important. And yeah, like, what's the balance between, Jalen's going to have issues. He's, we meet him in this book where he's at a real career slump, and everybody's calling him a draft bust, and he's the highest drafted black hockey player of all time. So of course there's going to be racism that he's faced because of that. Um, but not making that like his only story for him.
So, Lexi, I have to share. I did share this book around with some other
Mhm.
folks that I work with. And a nerdy question, I don't know if you've thought of this.
Mhm.
Do you have a player comp for Jalen in the NHL?
Well, I don't like to like put that on another player. Like I don't want to like call out some guy, but there are highly drafted black hockey players currently playing that maybe, you could see a little bit of Jalen in for sure.
Yeah, I know for me, as I'm reading it, like my mind went to Quentin Byfield because I felt like as a second overall pick,
Mhm.
everybody was so quick to pile on him and forgot about like, these players getting drafted in the COVID years and things like that. And everyone was
Mhm.
like, nope, he's bad already. And it's like, wow, you'll give a lot more leeway to someone who is white and from North America every single time over a European player or a black player going through this.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so first I want to ask you, do you have any did you have any superstitions as a goalie, or, did JT have any that really stuck out to you that inspired this?
I did for sure. I mean, just embarrassing things with like having to talk to my posts and like a ritual with tapping my posts with my stick. Like there are so many with goaltending. Like I feel like I wasn't really playing hockey half the time. I was just like doing my little rituals. JT is surprisingly not superstitious. Like 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 crazy. He kind of marches to the own beat of his drum, though. So, like, it's also kind of fitting that he doesn't have any really major superstitions.
Yeah, I love that for him, honestly, because
Mhm.
we see it so many times. Like, and I get the superstitions. I think fans have them, everyone has them, right? But we know that's a big part of hockey, and we know that this is a sport that's hard to get into. It's hard to
Mhm.
understand. There's so many barriers to becoming a hockey fan, and the league also sucks growing the game. So this book does a really good job of that. How did you balance trying to explain hockey and making it understandable without like losing the plot along the way of the story?
Yeah, that was like the other thing is making sure that I've got hockey on the page, but not to the point where people are like, okay, like I'm just reading a game here. So I definitely wanted hockey on the page. That doesn't always happen in hockey romances. So that is like from Jalen's point of view, he is on the ice playing the game. So that was important for me because I think that's exciting and that just makes it feel all that more authentic. But also being like, okay, I gotta maybe tone down the language, like the slang or the terms, and maybe start with like some entry kind of language so that people who don't know hockey that well can really get into it. But I've also shared on social media, like, this is what this term means. And I try to do that too in the book a little bit because my main female character, she's new to the sport too. And I love that you get to see her and her friend group really fall in love with the game.
Okay, so you are really important in this space as being somebody who is kind of like, I would say, maybe a liaison for a lot of people that maybe younger kids on TikTok that like want to get into hockey, or when they have these questions they ask you and whatever. You are in all parts of the hockey world. And I saw you tweet the other day that, hey, like you were in Seattle and maybe it was, I forget the exact tweet, but it was like you were talking to queer people about
This is the
the
Four
Four
Nations
Nations or
one.
whatever.
Four
Yeah. And
Nations,
it's like,
yeah.
it's not all doom and gloom. Like there are people that are like us that are in
Yeah.
this space or whatever. So I think with this book and with your TikTok presence, has it been, I mean, I know you live in all spaces in the hockey world, but has it been maybe a little encouraging to see that book talk has taken in hockey and that it can be people more like us or like not always hockey people getting into the sport?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I love this kind of aspect of people getting into hockey from these books because it's reaching a demographic that wouldn't have previously thought there was a space for them or that they could have, and it's like this little kind of entryway into it. So it's like a little introduction into it. And there are people who are like huge diehard hockey fans who also like these hockey books. And so there's like that connection. It's just like a little bridge. And yeah, I think the more diverse the fandom becomes for hockey, it's all part of growing the game and making it a safer space and making people feel welcome.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, that's me.
Oh
Sorry.
no, it's
I
okay. I
thought
was
Sarah had another. I didn't want to cut her off. Okay, so we know the NHL doesn't always get fan interest, right? Like
Yeah.
fans don't care about salaries. They don't need those kinds of websites. It seems like maybe they're catching on a little bit because we see Kat Foley has a podcast now. How much interest do you think there is out there for content from the wives and girlfriends of players? I feel like we're getting that more in other leagues. Do you think the NHL is finally catching on a little?
Since starting my TikTok journey, I have been shocked at what people find interesting when it comes to not only like the players, but just the lifestyle, the sport in general. Like truly shocked. And I feel like we're right there at that moment where like the team social media is realizing it too. Like people don't care. Like the old content isn't what's flying anymore. Like you need to be weirder, you need to be more obscure. Like they want to know, like they want to talk to the moms and dads. Like the content is getting so much better because we're just saying, okay, like enough of these questions we've been asking the guys for the past 5 years. Like let's really get to know them or let's really throw them a curveball and see how they react to it. And so I've really found that out online too with just the content that I make. I showed a video of these little mini gloves that we were gifted when I had my children, and it got like 1 million views. I was like, "What?" I was like, "This is the content. This is the hockey content you guys want to know." And yeah, people love it. Like they want to know more about the behind the scenes stuff. And I think it's really great for all the hockey wives because it's giving everybody a voice. And like I said, it can be hard to know who you are when you are so much of who you are is attached to your significant other. And so through social media, there's really been this opportunity for, and not just in the hockey space, but we've seen it in the football space and basketball space that significant others are really being able to have their own voice and to share their own stories and to tell you what it's like behind the scenes. And fans love it.
Lexi, to dig into that a little bit
Mhm.
more, right? Like this is your lived experience. And it would be easy for fans to be like, oh, yeah, just tell us what's going on or tell us what you think. And I think all of us here now know you take a risk when you share maybe some of the
Mhm.
more honest moments. So, how do you think about how intentional you want to be and what risks you want to take when you're opening the doors to facts and stories that are important, but also maybe aren't the norm, and maybe people are like, oh, I can't believe you said that kind of thing about the role of women in
Yeah.
hockey first.
Yeah, I think definitely it helps for me that JT's retired from hockey. I have a bit more freedom to say what I want to say and to share, like I made a video about these were the best family wive rooms and these ones were the worst. Like you can't be trying to get a contract and be saying stuff like that online. But yeah, you kind of have to. And then the other thing is like, what do you want to share? What do you want to, how much do you want to open up your life? And not everybody wants to do that, and that's respectable. But I think especially for me and especially for JT, we've always really been like an open book, and we've always talked about the difficult things. So talking about, the gloves that my kids got, well, that's a lot easier. So for me, I've always been really really open and able to share that kind of stuff. I guess it just depends on the person.
And there's sharing, and I so often am taking my cues from you and celebrating you, because there's sharing and then there's advocating and fighting for,
Hmm.
right? And I know that's something we all four take very seriously. How do you evaluate when we need to raise our voices in defense of maybe underrepresented communities, be they our queer community, be they people of color, be they women, in a space that traditionally has not welcomed us?
Yeah, I mean, I try to as much as possible. I worry that I'm not doing enough, and I worry that as a whole we're kind of going back to this like, oh, don't be too woke, don't be too crazy. Because I look back on some of the stuff I was doing in 2020, and I was like, damn, I was angry, like, and rightfully so. And I'm like, hey, I got to get that energy back because I do worry that we're like going a little bit backwards and we're being a little bit too quiet. So for me, it's like whenever I can, I want to speak out about stuff. I want to be vocal, and that's easy, really. The hard stuff is facing, the discrimination that people are facing or the danger that people are facing. So it's really easy for me to just advocate.
At the same time, resistance and joy can be intertwined, though. And I think
Hmm.
you're doing something that is so rare where here's a book, here's a piece of entertainment for people that has certain topics in it, but it's also for people to stay in the space. I've been thinking about, okay, should I be doing more? What should I be doing? And part of it is just staying in the space and not going crazy, right? So you're kind of
Yeah.
giving people a resource to do that. Okay. So don't put yourself down in that way. Like you are
Yeah.
doing enough. And this is a really important part of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I think just to, go even further, like I am queer, so just being queer and being loud is good too, is advocacy too.
It's incredible. I can't tell you how many of your tweets some of us can't always publicly share, but the screenshots are in rampant in many a
Thank you.
chat. You
Yeah.
you you provide a lot of fuel on a lot of days that we need it for sure.
Thank you.
Is there anything you can suggest? I know a lot of people say like what can I do to help? Where can I get started? And you don't know how, right? And sometimes you look at it and go, well, it's hockey, it really doesn't matter that much. Maybe I don't need to be doing anything. And it's like, no, it does matter. Having any different voices from the norm, from what we're so used to like getting shoved down our throat every single day is a good
Hmm.
thing. Do you have any thoughts on like where people can get started to try to like follow your lead on this?
I mean, I love Black Girl Hockey Club. They've been around for a while, and that's kind of a really good go-to for if you're looking to donate money or help out, help make like the fandom and the game more diverse. And something that's really easy that you can do is just support people who like you agree with the messaging that you agree with, and then advocating if you see something happening, whether it's at a game or in an online space, and then just being like good friends, being a good ally with people. And that can be online too. It doesn't just have to be like in real life, in your real life. Because I know a lot of these hockey communities happen online.
Lexi, like Sarah was saying, I think this book just so beautifully and entertainingly makes a welcome space for so many people, for hockey people, for queer people, for people who are taking care of their mental health. Who do you hope this book reaches? I'm sure it's a whole vast group of people, not just one community.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody can really enjoy it. It is just, a fun hockey rom-com, but at the same time, it really is for that hockey community that has been so supportive of my husband and I throughout, his entire career with everything that we've stood for, everything that he stood for. Like we were really supported by this queer BIPOC hockey online community really throughout his whole entire career. And so I want to write something that's really, for that community that's always really supported us. And I want it to be a book that celebrates queerness and celebrates, yeah, diversity as well as hockey.
So, we all try to talk about different voices in hockey that inspire us and how we can elevate them because sometimes that's the most important thing you can do, right? Like we all love your voice and your perspective. Are there any, people out there you look to pretty often or want to like just put out there for others to know to follow?
Oh my God, can I tag them? Can I go on this and tag them?
Yeah,
Because I want to get their
please,
tags right. I
please.
will comment on this and tag all the people who I love to follow, and then I'll encourage others to do the same.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Lexi, again, this book, I finished it so fast. And then the people I was on vacation with, I was like, read this. And we were all fighting over the book to
Oh
get through it.
my
It was
God, thank you.
so good.
Yeah.
It's been so awesome to see you promoting events when the book comes out and they're selling out. And this is so exciting. Like, where can people go to get the book? How can they support you? Beyond just buying a copy and reading it, how do we make this book just blow up everywhere?
Oh my God, you're so sweet. You can get it from like your local bookstore. You can get it from really wherever you buy books. And then I have some local events in Seattle. So Allison and I, we're doing a KCI event on March 11th, which is going to be a ton of fun. And then I also have another Seattle event on Friday, March 14th. I'll be signing at the Barnes and Noble at Northgate. And then I'm in Portland on the 13th. So I have like some dates where I'm going on tour, but yeah, I mean, read the book. Love hockey is all I want. If you read the book and love the book, I love that too. But I just want to see more people coming into the sport and loving the sport as well.
And should we expect more stories coming from author Lexi LaFleur Brown?
Yes, I did. It was a two-book deal, so I am so
Oh
excited.
yeah.
I'm so excited that I'll have another hockey romance coming out in 2026.
That's
Oh my God, that's
awesome.
so exciting.
Mhm.
So cool. Well, we will all be first in line to buy that. Lexi, you are iconic. You are a leader. You are a trailblazer. You are just, we just hold you in such high regard, and we are so excited for you. This couldn't be a better honor for someone like you. And we thank you for joining us. And just please come back again. We'll have you any old time and keep being your awesome self.
Aw, thank you so much. It was so great, guys. Thank you. I really appreciate it.